I like talking about the concept of morality, the concept of good versus evil. We love to assume that we're the good ones and they're the bad guys. We love to make that assumption. Because if nothing else, we can say, at least I'm not an axe murderer. People love to use that as their defense. And actually, I started watching a show on Netflix. It's called The Good Place, where this, I guess she's pushing 30. I was a girl, a woman, I don't know what to call it. But she dies and goes to the afterlife and accidentally ends up in the good place as compared to the bad place. And one of the things she says is, well, at least I'm not a murderer, at least I'm not an axe murderer. That's the go-to thing. We love to compare ourselves to other people morally because it makes us feel superior. While other people would probably use us as the bad person in comparison, right? So, and I've made a video too talking about how ultimately, if you take away religion and you take away the law, what is morality? No one has ever been able to answer that question. I've mentioned it many times. You can't have morality. You can't have a good person and a bad person if you take away religion and you also take away the law. You can't do it. It's impossible. There's no way to define that. You're welcome to try in the comments, but so far no one's done it. And if you do successfully do it, or at least appear to have a successful response to that, I'm happy to make a video about it. You know me. Most of my videos are based off of comments or ideas that people leave. Here's what I want to talk about here. Let's talk about nations. Let's talk about morality in nations. Here's something I was thinking about. There are certain nations that are known for their religious identity. Let's name a few. Well, let's start with America. Obviously, we're known as a Christian nation. We are. We can talk about another one that comes to mind is Israel. I'd say that's a very religious nation. There's obviously Jewish people, Islam, and even Christianity. There's different religions, but it's a very religious place. So it makes me think, here's my question for you. In theory, are the nations that are more religious, as far as this is a more religious nation, are they any more morally superior to nations that are not? I am so looking forward to the comments that I'm going to see here, because I know that there are certain countries in Northern Europe that are very agnostic. So do they have lower crime rates than nations that are more religious? I mean, can we find a way to qualify this? When we look at the most religious countries, do they have lower crime rates? Do they have lower poverty rates? When it comes to war, are they able to stay out of war? Do we see that as a moral thing? If you can stay out of wars, except for when you're actually being attacked, or how does that play into it? Because see, that's why I know that's a big reason why a lot of people don't like America politically, because we're the police of the world. We get involved and help people fight their wars and all this. You know, we translate it, oh, well, I'm defending my country. But ultimately, we're policing the world. So a lot of people would say that's an immoral thing about the United States, while people in the United States say we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right moral thing because we're protecting and serving the rest of the world who doesn't have the ability to protect themselves, or whatever, you know, Vietnam War, Korean War, etc. So every war we've had, since 9/11. So did that war ever stop, or is it still going on? I guess I just assume the rest of my life that war is going on. As we're fighting radical Islam, is that what we're still fighting? I don't know. Does anybody know why we're still fighting the war? Why we still have people over there? I mean, man, it's been a long time. It's like 17 years of this, right? I mean, yeah. So ultimately, is there any correlation between nations that are known specifically for being religious? Is it Brazil? I've been to Central America, but never South America. But isn't it Brazil? I don't even know. Again, I'm an American, so I don't know much about geography. My school system failed me when it comes to that. That wasn't important in the value system here in America, and I admit it. And that's why I like to make videos to ask questions, which shows that I'm intelligent, not ignorant. Now, ignorant means you don't know certain things, but I think people want to try to give me a hard time for not knowing answers. But I say this, if you're actually smart, then you're wanting to fill in those gaps and understand more about things. My point was, there's that big statue of Jesus, of Christ, and I'm pretty sure that's Rio, it's like the capital of Brazil. Again, throw your tomatoes at me, crucify me over this for not knowing. But even now, I'm asking you a question, I'm wanting you to teach me, okay? But I think of like, they've got that big statue. That's a very Christian thing. But then there's other nations that we look at their religion, it's kind of different. Like Buddhism, for example, a place, I spent 2 summers teaching in Bangkok, Thailand, Nonthaburi, in Global English School. You can Google that. I was a teacher there 2 summers in college. And it was very obvious to me how religious they are. It's inseparable from their culture, Buddhism. And it's interesting because Buddhism, I think, is a large part of, for me as a Christian, how I live my life. I think something I really very much respect about Buddhism is it's about emotional intelligence. Ultimately, that's my translation, is that you don't let other people emotionally affect you. You don't allow yourself to get caught up in these emotions and losing your cool over stupid stuff like so many Americans do as they're driving in traffic. If they perceive that someone cut them off, then they curse out the person, honk their horn, flip them off, all that, you know. And it's like, if you're a Buddhist, you can't do that. You have to just keep driving and be calm and think, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I don't need to be emotionally affected over that. And I saw that with Asian culture. I've also spent time in Korea, but specifically for me, the Buddhist concept that I saw in Thailand, I have a lot of respect for it. And it showed me Christianity in a new light. I see the Buddhism in Christianity. So I think that's interesting. But even then, let's talk about Thailand. Are they any less corrupt of a country in certain ways? Well, I already know the answer. I know certain things that go on there in Thailand, even if I didn't see them firsthand. And that's not to pick on Thailand. I love Thailand. It's one of my favorite countries. We can do that with any country is my point, though. We can look at that nation's religion, look at the morality of the country, and try to see is there a relation. And what bullet points would we I mean, I mentioned crime, I mentioned poverty, I mentioned involvement in war, for better or worse. What other bullet points would we have? And could we locate this certain nation where we think, okay, this is a great country, morally they're great. Okay, so then what's their religion? Do they have a recognized religion that's part of their identity or not? Are we going to come to the conclusion that the best moral countries in the world don't have a religious identity? Or are we going to come to the realization that yes, the best nations in the world do have religion as part of their national identity? And what are they? I love the fact that I get to make this video because I get to learn so much from you right here. Comment.